go. And I've also got an Einstein wig that has little on the lights on the really unruly hair.
Next one.
It's a little over the top. Who knows?
Hi.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to Comic-Con 2019. We are here to talk about gamifying technology and the future of gaming. I'm Valerie Vacante, the founder of Collabsco. We're a strategy and innovation firm based in Austin, Texas, and really the things that we do are uncovering new technologies, new trends, facilitate partnerships, so collaborations between, say, it could be a traditional game company and an immersive company, and kind of get together and make some awesome things happen. So it just makes perfect sense that I'm here with these two gentlemen, pioneers in their own industry. So Nolan Bushnell, the godfather of video games, founder of Atari, entrepreneur, innovator, creator, founder of Chuckie Cheese, and amongst other memories. You've been a part of my childhood. Thank you. Thank you. And then everything from in-car navigation, in the very, very early, a pioneer of it. I mean, you created that.
First one.
And then also we have J.A.R.V.I.S, Ortiz, a pioneer in his own right in a different area, coming from a creative director from Hollywood and creating those visual interpretations of what the future looks like. And now gamer maker, co-creator with Nolan and co-entrepreneurs, I guess.
Zay is so much better than I am. I just do crap, and he makes it look good.
So you balance each other, right? Well, let's see. Okay, there's us. We did that.
We did it.
Check. Cool. So here is kind of a montage, if you will, of not all of, but some of the phenomenal work that Nolan and Zai have created and pioneered throughout their careers. So really, starting with the first question, Nolan, as we said, you pioneered video gaming. I mean, something that's probably instilled in everybody's life here in this room, I'm sure. Yeah, you hear that? But can you tell us a little bit about your early days right before Atari? So you kind of went from a engineer and maker to then founder and really shaping this iconic company. Can you share that story with us?
Well, I've often felt that my life has been a series of happy accidents. And putting myself through college, I worked in amusement park summers. And it was in Utah where the winters, the amusement park had shut down, so it was perfect for that. And became manager of the games department. And so it was like an MBA with hard knocks. And then the other happy accident is I went to the University of Utah. That if you wanted to see a big computer with a video monitor, there were only 4 places in the world that you could do that. One was MIT, one was Stanford AI Lab, one was Champaign-Urbana, and one was the University of Utah. Which university doesn't fit, And that's where I went to school. And so I saw a space war game, and I knew that if I had that screen with a coin slot on it, it'd make money at the amusement park. So, was that an epiphany? I don't think so. I think anybody that would have been in my situation at the time would have seen the same thing. But then you divide 25 cents for 3 minutes into a $500,000 computer, and the math doesn't work. So I graduated, went to Silicon Valley, and one day the TTL family of chips went from $2.80 a piece to 15 cents. And I said, I can solve this problem, and did. And so that's kind of, I mean, so was that a burst of inspiration, or was it just taking advantage of what was happening at the time? That's the question.
Yeah, but I think you had to have the vision to put the pieces together, you know.
Well, you also kind of had to have a couple of screws loose, you know, because what people don't realize is that innovation is always hard. And like, for example, if more than 20% of the population think you're right, that means you're not innovating enough.
That you got to have that.
You got to have that tension.
Contrarian, yeah, tension. Very good
Yeah,
word.
the creative tension.
And so, kind of building on your Atari days, I think one of the most interesting stories is that Steve Jobs, he worked for Atari in the early days, and I guess if you can share with us a little bit about the story of Steve coming on board and how you sort of saw his talent.
I would like to back up a little bit from that. And
Sure.
what I believe was one of the major contributions that Atari made was work practices and mindset. And Atari was the first company that said, we focus on outcomes, not process. And that means if you want to wear a bathing suit to work, that's okay. If you want to not come to work, that's okay. Get your job done, and that's okay. When Steve Jobs showed up at Atari, I guarantee you that he would have not been hired by anybody that didn't have that ethos. And because he was unruly and unkempt and stank and all that, but you could tell there was a spark there. Like I always, when entrepreneurs come to me and they say, what's one of the main things? And I say, well, the first thing, don't hire dead people. And what people don't realize is that I'd say 80% of the population are dead from the neck up, and they just don't know it yet. Mm-hmm. And one of the success formulas of Atari is we totally hired for innovation. And Zai and I have an identical, idea on that. We've talked about it several times. And Zai only hires alive people, and it's really important.
Yeah, totally important. I mean, as a visionary, you have to go through and scout, and you want to bring people that are in line with yourself and have that vision so greater things could happen. So.
And one of the reasons I wanted to bring up the Steve Jobs topic is exactly that. The kind of people, I think he's a prime example of the type of people, that different thinking, that little bit of rebellion, that little bit of pushback, and it sounds like,
yeah,
you hear that.
Yeah, totally. You can't have, you can't think normal in this business, in any entertainment business.
A couple of my best employees were people that I hired that waited on me. And I said, boy, that person's really good. I should hire them. I'd give them a big tip and then say, you can make even more if you come and work for me. And they always worked out, 100%. Why not?
And I like working with people that are not even in the industry. It kind of breaks the norm. And someone that might have the skill in VR to do another skill set in another category, you challenge them, and they bring in something that is super unique, because you bring someone that has been doing the same thing for 25 years and they're on repeat, you're going to get a repeat. So when you kind of challenge someone's mind and you give them actually something back by doing that, they ended up creating a new career for themselves and a new platform, and now they're versatile.
Yeah, and being in innovation actually frees you up a great deal because nobody has experience, because nobody's done it before. And so,
It's
you know,
kind of what we've done here.
But you know, innovation is so much fun because you don't know what's going to happen. Oops, I didn't do that right. Anyway, it's fun because exploration is fun. And we don't really know exactly how things are going to turn out. I have designed some really crappy games. But here's the wonderful thing. You guys didn't know that. Your failures are invisible. You remember me for all the good shit I did.
But out of failure, good things come out of it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of design, Zai, I would love to hear you share your journey, right? So you come from this phenomenal Hollywood, creative background, versatile. You use that word from everything from details and typography to 3D graphics to creating that vision of Iron Man and J.A.R.V.I.S and Tron and all of these phenomenal films. Like, tell us your story and your journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm an artist at heart. So, always through my life, I was drawing and just on paper and painting. And I kind of stumbled on the computers when, I loved cameras. I loved seeing things through my lenses, and I wanted other people to see that as well. So I got really fascinated about camera lenses. So I went to school to be a cameraman, and I found out that that wasn't what I wanted. I basically couldn't wait around and behind a camera while other people were working around me. And I love instant gratification in creating things and experimental and breaking the norm. So my imagination went crazy, and I stumbled on 3D software at the time, and I said, wow, I could be the creator of the lights, the camera, the action, all of it together. So that was my playground for a while. And how I stumbled on that, I studied with Alias Wavefront, which is Autodesk now, and that happened years ago. I basically, I dropped out of school. I went to study with them, and it was the best thing I ever did, because after that I worked on Fast and Furious 2, and it was so much fun. I loved fast cars and shiny things, and just created some amazing graphics, and it just went from there, from iRobot to other things. But before I go further in that, I was a designer. I was a designer at heart, and I did typography and did ads and things for New Balance and stuff. And I love the design of all of that, what came with it, composition. And then I combined my skill set of design into camera work, and that's where I put every piece of my animation and my heart goes into design with 3D animation and creation with sound and all of that encompassing. So how I kind of envision things is basically I see things in front of me, and as I see it in front of me, I go grab it. And as I grab it, I bring it forward and forward and forward. And those are the things. And my influence and my inspiration are everyone here, the people, everything that goes around, happens in life is my inspiration. And I absorb all that, and I take that, and I say, okay, what can I make out of this? What can I make different out of this? How can I see this from a different lens? And I think that contributes to studying as a cameraman, and I wanted to contribute that for everyone else to see. So I did it for 20-something years, working on feature films and experimental stuff, and I got really heavy into 3D animation, from everything from character animation to rigging to typography to stylizing. Stylistic, everything had to be stylized for me. Like, if someone asked me to do something photoreal, I'll say, I'll do it photoreal, but it needs my signature on it. And So everything in the process kind of came about to be this look that I was hoping that everyone will enjoy, and I feel like I've helped, you know, other designers and animators along the way, and I give back and I train them as well. I've took a bunch of people under my wing and even into my home to teach them, and they're fantastic artists and right now, and I'm proud of them. And what I inspired to do is you know, I saw, you know, them learning. I wanted to learn myself, so I basically broke the career that I had going, and I said, hey, I want to get into gaming. You know, I met this fantastic man next to me, and I was like, you know, this is an opportunity to kind of explore and reset and say, okay, I'm going to take this entertainment career that I've built, and I'm going to take that and now apply it to the game mechanics. And no better man next to me to bring that together. So I said, let's do it, and we both kind of went into the abyss. We don't know anything about AI and machine learning, but we were fascinated about what are people not doing right now. And you know, we always sat down together and had these moments where we would talk about, you know, just our ideas. I mean, we talked about, you know, these location-based places to what if a game looks like this or that, and we just started exploring different things, and you know, so I mean, it's super exciting. Like, I feel refreshed. I feel like I'm a novice of what I'm doing right now, which feels fantastic because I'm learning. I know I'm learning, and I could feel it. And I think that's the greatest feeling for anyone to know that there's something ahead of them.
The best thing you can do is to be a beginner. You know, that's where you're breaking all the ice. That's when you're forging new passions. If you drive home from work the same way every day, it becomes invisible.
Well, and you get the same outcome. And for me, because as also a creator, innovator, and all of as creator mainly, that's where I get my most inspiration, is kind of going on the ground, doing research, you know, being in different markets, seeing what other people are doing in different cultures and kind of bringing it back. It might be a new technology, it might be an artist, and kind of meshing them together. So I know Zai and I have had some conversations on like, hey, what if you took this, and what if you took that, and dashed them together? What would that make?
Then you do what I call the weird test.
I like the name already. I mean, it sounds fun.
If everybody thinks it's weird, then you're on the right track.
I love hearing that, because all my life, people have told me I was weird, and I took it as a negative. And when I saw you guys speak at the Alexa conference, you were talking about how cool weird is, and I'm like, it makes sense. I get it now. So I love that thinking of.
Well, you know,
weird.
Comic-Con, trust me, there's a lot of weird here. You know, and you know, my people.
Yeah. No, I love that, and you know, from your early days of Atari, Nolan, can you tell us about, you know, how Chuckie Cheese started? Like, share that story with us. So you're in Atari, you had some hits, and then,
Yeah.
boom.
Chuckie Cheese was what I call vertical integration towards the market. We were selling coin-op machines for about $2,000. In their lifetime, they'd earn $30,000 to $50,000. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to know that I was on the wrong side of that equation. And so I didn't want to compete to my then customers, which were in the bars and restaurants and all that, bowling alleys. Plus, I knew that kids under 10 loved the games, wanted to play, but had scarce opportunities to go. Like, games tended to not be in regular restaurants or pizza parlors at the time. And so I said, I'm going to create now imagine pitching this to VCs. I want to build a game center that's 10 times bigger than any game center. And I want to have pizza 10 times better bigger than any pizza store you've ever seen. And wait, there's more. Talking robotic animals.
Yeah, that's a party right there.
You know? And so it was one of those things that the secret was, you know, I've always thought of myself as an engineer first or a scientist with kind of a businessman tacked on. And so I'd actually created the dynamics that pizza is a 20% food cost. We had no table service, so that was a 20% labor cost. And games, which were 30% of the revenue, had virtually no costs associated with, except depreciation. So on a unit basis, Chuckie Cheese was designed to have a 40% plus gross margin. It's pretty hard to screw that up. We actually managed to do that, but that's another story.
But I love that story because, you know, even just in basic business math today, right, economics, I love it because, you know, here you are, you have Atari, you have this console format, right, and then you're creating, like, one of the first location-based entertainment spaces for kids and family friendly,
Right.
which is really important. That's someplace that everybody can go. So I can go with my 10-year-old son, I can go with, you know, my friend, etc. Game on, eat pizza. I think it's important for all of us. Pizza is important, and have that experience. And the other part I thought was really brilliant about Chuckie Cheese is the fact that you have your games in there. So you're getting money on top of money on top of money. I mean, it's brilliant and a great test bed too.
It worked. It was, one of the things I've got to tell you about, though, we didn't want teenagers. And so we said, no adults without a child. That was really aimed at keeping teenagers out, because we know that teenagers never want to go anywhere with their parents.
Well, and wasn't that at the time, I read somewhere, like, wasn't that part of the controversy, you know, of Chuck E. Cheese starting, that, you know, in some towns, people were concerned about teenagers being there?
Well, that's because teenagers basically dominated the bowling alleys and the arcades that were in malls and what have you. And so I didn't want to have that. And, you know, a lot of people have thought that the space program is all about finding a place where we can put teenagers until they turn 20. Anyway.
So kind of going back to, from a visual standpoint, Zai, I would love for you to share your story on creating J.A.R.V.I.S and Iron Man, just like all the details, start to finish, because it's such an iconic image and visual movement of the future that people see. So yeah, please share the story with us.
Sure. So I basically was assigned to figure out how the hologram system would work, and especially the suit itself. That was the first initial thing, is figuring out how do you make a suite of 240 shots and basically build the same look across with a team of about 39, 40 people. And so I was the director of 3D on it, and basically what I came to figure out is that to develop something like this, I needed to see it and create it in 3D. So what I ended up doing is, you know, I was looking online all over the place to kind of figure out, like, what do people think holograms look like at the time? I mean, this is, Iron Man 2 is like, what, 8, 10 years ago or something like that? And I couldn't find much about it, but I stumbled on something on like MIT that they were using like light emission and a spinning light meter thing. And it was like undulating and it just like flickered, and I was like, that's really cool. And I started looking more and I started to explore, and when I got deep into it, I realized that there was these imperfections that were really cool about it. And it actually, I was studying a lot of like physical light emission and caustics and all that at the time. And I was like, let me start implementing all that. And I started driving into that. And then once I kind of started to stumble on a certain look, we had a whole team around us and some fantastic creative directors around that all contributed from, the creation, and all of them, had a point of interest into all this with me. So I want to give them all credit as well. They were fantastic to, along the journey with me. So when I basically nailed it, I kind of got this look, and it was presented to Jon Favreau, and at that moment, that's when I ended up becoming the CG Soup and, bringing it home. And I was assigned that look was the look to kind of bring it to all the other artists and to envision what this, it was like a leapfrog into, okay, so if this is the future then, how far can we go? So I actually dumbed it down a little bit because as it started looking too perfect. And so you had to take it to a step back, and you had to make it feel a little bit real. I mean, the footage and everything that was shot was like, you had to integrate and track everything and make sure that the color and all the particles and the simulation was all coherent inside the shot. So, I mean, there's an image, can we bring that back up there, of the slide? So on the top middle, like, we were all imagining, like, where is this hologram coming from? So if you see there's points of lights across the room. And so I don't know if anyone would pick this up, but we were thinking, okay, let that be kind of light emission, and let that be, delivering point cloud data. And that's where basically J.A.R.V.I.S is, drawing from the AI part of it. I was contributing to the visual part of it. So I was trying to imagine, what can it be if an AI component could transfer a visual component to it? So, and that's what I came up with the team, and they executed it, and they did a beautiful job. I mean, all the UI stuff to the animations, particularly the shot that you're looking at there on the top. The suit is, I created with a buddy of mine, Danny Yao, and he is a fantastic creative director, and he basically did the particle stuff, and I did the 3D animation on it. We lined it up, and the bottom one there, that was the beginning of the sequence where the molecule explodes. And that was such a pivotal point for the film, and Jon Favreau was like, this needs to be right. Like, this is like super important. This is the moment when he discovers the molecule that his father hid. So we need to make this is like the Yaha moment. And so I said, let me take that on. Let me take that on solo. And so I ended up creating that myself with basically just just sitting down in a room with the team and saying, okay, I want to do these couple of shots, did those shots, and executed. I developed and created the molecule itself and what it looked like and the atoms inside. And that science behind that was because I love science. I love the scientific part of it all. So every time when I came to work, I was like, I'm a scientist today. I am the scientist. I am creating this molecule. I am, it is going to be. And so I ended up, basically creating a molecule that doesn't exist. I was putting it all together. So, the silver screen was my playground. It was totally my playground. I was like, I got into that because I was like, where can I go and explore? Because I could experiment, even though there's a director and there's a crew and there's, a deadline. But in those means, it was my domain. That was me playing. And so there's some signature in there that I bring with me, and I enjoy that process. And I'm happy that I was able to, people don't know the name behind a lot of stuff when it comes to feature films, but it's great to know that people enjoyed it at the time. And I guess when VR started popping up, it was nice to kind of see that be referenced quite a bit.
Well, Zay, to that point, one of the things that's so interesting to me, because I've been working in VR, AR, MR, XR, whatever R of the flavor of the day, right? But the point is working in those mixed reality environments across a number of companies, both big and small. And I will tell you, in almost every pitch deck, there is some image of J.A.R.V.I.S that you have created. And like you said, years ago, and it's still that reference point that people use for that glimpse of the future. So I think it's really impressive anyway.
Nice, nice.
Okay, great. And let's see.
You know, one of the things that's really fun
Thank you.
is to try to take what really is the future and how do we get there faster. Because see, once you turn out to be kind of an old fart, you realize that if you want to live in the future, you gotta speed it up, you know? And so that kind of becomes important. But one of the things I'd like everyone here to understand is learn how to play chess or Go, because that allows you to train your brain to think sequentially and into the future. And that really helps with innovation and ideas and understanding the future. For example, self-driving cars. Is that a game platform? Yes, because you don't need to look out anymore, and the windshield and the side things, they can all be screens. So on your way to work, you can be driving down the street of ancient Egypt, you could be down Rome or a Martian city in the future. That's a better way to go to work, right?
Well, and Nolan, so share with us, because I think a lot of people here may not know about your experience with ETAC and how that came about. And you touched on it just a moment there, of like having that gameplay into it. But I think a lot of people don't know, it's one of the first incubators, right?
Yeah. The business plan for ETAC was written in the middle of the Pacific Ocean at 3 in the morning on the over the chart table of my sailing yacht. And we were in the race on the Transpac. And I'd really tricked this boat out with a lot of electronics. Why? Because I could. And, but this was before GPS. And so we had sat navs, and so we only got one update every 24 hours. You know, and so what we do is we do dead reckoning so that 12 hours in, if we were to sink, we'd know what our lat long was, and we could get on the radio and save our butts. And we just got thinking, you know, we've got all this squishy stuff under us. If we were actually on dry land, we could create dead reckoning algorithms that would be very, very accurate. And so we did and founded automobile navigation and knew that GPS was coming along. And like if you go into Google Maps or anything right now, it's all, you'll find underlying the data, it's our database and our algorithms.
And Nolan, so what year was that, just to give everybody context?
1983.
It's amazing.
I had the first automobile with a map system. It was a little gooseneck thing that came out, and it was a vector graphic display about like that. And magically as magical, the database was on a cassette.
Oh my
An
gosh.
audio cassette. And, you know, and what was funny about it is when you'd cross a certain boundary where you had a different set of coordinates, you had to change this cassette.
Like put it on the B side.
Or on the other side, you know, it was really, well, let's put this, it wasn't quite ready for prime time, but it was good, you know, it worked.
Great. So I'd like to just so we talked about the past and your phenomenal vision of the future back then. Now I'd like to talk about the present and really hear about State Noir. So we can show the spot and then talk about it?
Yeah.
Great.
State Noir is a creepy city.
Actually, I got ahead of myself. My bad. Before we go into State Noir, it's coming. Before we go to State Noir, I'd like you guys to share the story. Zai and I were talking, and I just came up with this term, Kindred Creatives. And that's what it sounded like when he told me the story of how you guys got together. And I think it's an important story, and I'd love to hear you guys share it with the folks here.
Sure. So, we're both from the entertainment industry, and we both live in Los Angeles, so we were bound to meet up at some point. So we met at an event, and from there we started talking, and it wasn't about business, it was just about ideas. And before we left that event, we were like, let's exchange numbers, and why don't we meet up for breakfast? And so from there on, we met for the first time over breakfast. We started talking and started to continue sharing these ideas, and that's all it was. It was just ideas. And then it became a weekly thing. We would just meet up. We would go along our business, had other things, but we would always carve out time to meet up. And just for that 1 hour, we would just explore and not put any boundaries on ourselves and constraints that the real world was giving us. And so one day we just, started talking a little bit more in depth. Now, what if it was a business? And what can we make this into a business? And so I went home and made a deck. I put some visuals because I needed visuals to see what this could be. And, words are beautiful and sound is beautiful, but I need the whole immersiveness, so I needed the visuals. And I shared it the next time when we met, and it just became real. It just resonated. And I think the rest is history. I think that's where it all started.
Well, when you're weird, most of the ideas that you pitch to people, they think you're weird, and they tell you so. What's rare is when you find somebody that you can talk about a weird idea, and they not just agree with you, they want to make it better. Yep. And so all of a sudden there's this synergistic pull that creates kind of magic out of dung. And I always felt that Zai had that ability to polish up and make good my half, let's call them quarter-baked, because some of them weren't even half-baked yet. And so that's a special relationship. And Zai has the benefit that he works harder than I do. Because I'm mostly up here, but it's a good partnership. I mean, I can't believe how good his stuff looks, and you'll see it in a minute.
That's right. Great cue, Nolan. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Well, they really had the bass hooked up on that one, but Zai did this, and I'd be embarrassed to tell you what the budget was, but it was less than a dinner. Not quite, but close.
I guess it depends where you eat, Nolan.
Right. So this trailer is kind of This was, I guess, the premonition of the game. This was a teaser to State Noir. This was actually made because I needed a visual for the creation of the game. So basically, Nolan and I worked on what would be a great idea for a game that would encompass AI and the user base of 100 million Alexas. And at the time when he said that to me, we were like, it's not a gaming device, right? I mean, it's not. People use it to play music and do other things, to turn on their lights. But Nolan had this vision that, what if it was a gaming device? Let's just explore it. And so we started thinking about certain things, and Nolan's a board game fan, and I was like, what wouldn't be it would be awesome to combine some immersiveness, you know? We were playing some board games and we explored, and for me, I need a little bit more. So I was like getting not in the trenches of it. I need some sound. I need, you know, I love the idea of, you know, the psyche to touch and everything. So what we came up with is figuring out, okay, how do you make something, a game, bring some sound to it, almost like you're in a theater, but you're not watching it, but you're using your imagination to draw the images, and you're a detective, and how do you figure this out? So we created this trailer to kind of bring upon who the cast is. You know, what is that character, the depth of that character, and each of the suspects in that town. And so how we kind of came about that, we ended up casting people and we started writing about them. And we had a great writer that went super in depth, and before we ever went into how is this game gonna work, we actually wrote a story. And it ended up being like 8 movies long. And we felt like, okay, I think we got something here. Nolan brought in the game mechanics in there and the questions and figuring out, okay, what if we ask this question? What if we say this? And so our engineers started to build upon that. And just to rewind a little bit, it was not easy finding someone to program this because no one really has done it before. And so we hired people that were in VR and AR and different aspects to program something that was just sound. And, you know, I call it, you know, this board game and this immersiveness is cinematic to me. I know cinematic kind of has a definition of a picture, but this is totally cinematic in the way of how, when you play the game, you will get the juxtaposition of understanding that this could be a movie. And this could be, you are the detective and you're trying it multiple times. You know, so the gameplay is about 15 to 30 minutes, and the idea about that is that we had some great game designers and hardcore ones, and the game was almost an hour long or more. It was fun to play, but we knew that...
It's not just fun to play. Yeah. You lose yourself.
Yeah, you do.
And that was one of our goals.
Yeah, and one of the things that we found out is that, well, we want people to be the detective multiple times. We are integrating branching narrative in this. And each story that was written branched off. So each time when you play, you have a different outcome. You're questioning different people. And so, and you can't just question them anywhere. You got to question them at a location, and then you could interrogate them and get deep and hear their story. So all this kind of happens all through Amazon Alexa and the device. And so that's the sound, but you need the board game. The board game is really what's first, and the sound is what kind of comes out. It's really, it's twofolds, and it takes it to the next level. It truly does. I mean,
it's about finding out who's lying. You move around the town. You're the detective. You're interviewing suspects. There are 12 suspects. All the suspects tell the truth. The perpetrator lies, the dirty
or
bastard.
they could lie too. The
Dirty bastard. And so what we do is by moving around the town and questioning, you cross-correlate out lies and you find the perp. And it's really fun. And what we figured out, you can play it a couple of thousand times without it repeating the scenario.
Yeah.
That was hard, incidentally.
Yeah, it was hard to make sure that the branching narrative had unique storylines, so you won't get the same result, twice, because it randomizes and stuff. And the beauty about it is also because it's on the cloud, we could always update it. So it's not like if you buy the board game, it's not just like you're always going to get updates, and we could drop in new characters, new voices. Now it becomes the expansion just grander based on that. So right now we're kind of, this was an exploration. It was really just an exploration to see if it worked, and we just ran with it.
Well, let's think about the high-level concept here. What does artificial intelligence and smart speakers bring to the world that didn't exist before? Well, in board games, there's always a randomization, pair of dice, a spinner, what have you. The Alexa can throw a 7-sided dice, which you can't do in the real world. You can time moves. That's cool. You can keep a secret. You can provide a Boolean branch that's logical, in or, XOR, what have you. You can provide sound effects and music, but the most important thing is we now have a conversational NPC, non-player character. So for the first time, you can have a conversation with an AI. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to get me into trouble, but it's true. If you count the words uttered during a person's life, women speak 3 times more words than men do. We all knew this. But what might happen is that you can tell how my wife would really yell at me for saying that. And she'd do it with at least 3 times as many words. But but we've been struggling in the video game business to find a female-friendly game. And while a lot of the games have 20% female, 5% female, now we have something that, you can talk to. We could just have the Holy Grail for female engagement. Or not. But one of the things I love about this world is that I like to pose questions. And variations. So we all know what a movie is, and we know what a video game is, kind of. Like, if you look at the far thing where it's just game, no narrative, what have you, that's kind of Pong. And a regular movie is here. Mm-hmm. How many of you saw Bandersnatch? Yeah. Well, see, that lifted it off the peg here a little bit. And if you're making a decision every minute, it's off the peg a little more. If you make a decision every 5 seconds, it's off the peg even more. Branching narratives are something that AI works with. So, for example, now that we're playing with Alexa, what if we had a branching narrative in which you get to talk to the movie? Don't trust him. Move to the left. Move to the right. There's someone behind you. I mean, I think that could be some really fun stuff. And it kind of brings us back. before many of you were born, in the early days of the computer business, there were things called text adventures. Remember those? Does anybody know what a moo or a mud was? Huh? Now, okay, here's a challenge, and if somebody does it, we'll publish it. I would love to have an Alexa moo.
Actually happening when a blind people play smart. When a blind person plays smart, they use voice synthesizer.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah. I mean, the thing that's really fun, of course, today, when you do some of these things, you always have to be careful for the people who are insane or creepy, or both. And anyway.
Well, I was going to say, Nolan, we have a few minutes left. So we talked about the past
Yep.
and envisioning the future and creating the future. We talked about the present with State Noir. One of the things we didn't touch on State Noir that I personally think's really awesome about the game is that they have over a dozen voice actors. So as Zai and Nolan were saying about the branching narrative and it kind of keep going, what's great is like you have these different actors and these different stories that still keep you really engaged. So that was one of the things that I enjoyed about the game. And then also the 30-minute gameplay I thought was really smart what you guys did, because although you want to play for longer, like that hour, what you actually, from my experience, you get more gameplay. You may end up playing an hour and a half, 2 hours, because you want to keep playing the game again and again.
I got to tell you one more game we're working on. How many of you played Mafia or Werewolf? Pardon? Fun damn game. But it's only fun if there's like 8 or 9 people. You know, it's kind of hard for those of you who don't have very many friends to get that. And so think about 4 of you getting together, and there are 4 synthetic players who are Alexified. And you can play Mafia. And sometimes the Alexa players are partially townspeople, and sometimes they're Mafia or what have you. Now, you guys think that would be fun? Ha 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 ha. You're going to be able to buy it. Anyway.
So I also want to just tap into, when we talk about Alexa, there is no Alexa digital voice in any of this. This is actually for like all of our games, and including State Noir, this is all actors recording their voices and acting it all out, where we actually capture the moments and then splice it together. And we do, everything is, so this has a jazz soundtrack underneath it that is unique. It's everything from the sound effects to the music to the voice actors. Everything is custom. That was one of my rules, that everything all the way through from the script to everything was custom. And I just wanted to kind of let everyone know that, because it drives me crazy to use an Alexa and hear it more than like 20 minutes. So it was really important to be immersed by this with other people's sounds and their voices, so I could draw a picture if they were wearing a cloak or wearing a hat and all that above. So just kind of wanted to note that real quick.
That's a good point. Like the high quality production value, it's not only in the voice characters and that sound, but it's
the ambient sound as well.
It's all the way through the
Atmospherics are so important.
through the tactile, actual physical play. So like from the board game, itself to say, I see in your hand you have some of the cards, and there's like this phenomenal foil on there.
Yeah, I mean the cards, the whole, design aspect, needed to be high end and be appreciated when you kind of, the tactile, like all the way down to the paper and the feel of it, needed to have a really good feel because you're holding it when you're playing the cards. And so everything needed to have the fine details, like in the instruction manual to like the how-to video to everything that the board game itself. So with the immersiveness that you had these visuals, and then you had someone to see and be like, oh, Principal Meacham, that's who I'm questioning. Like, what does this guy look like? I could hear his voice, but I want to see what this dude looks like. And then it's like, you're like wondering, like, okay, Haley? I mean, Isabella? I mean, where does she work, you know? She's the waitress. Or the Professor Foyle. Like, it's so important to have all this when you're playing the game, because then you become a better detective. Like, it's almost like you're a detective in training, and these visuals help you kind of perfect it. So it's been fun creating it.
I got to give a shout out to that top middle image. That's my son's place. It's called 2-Bit Circus. And it's in downtown LA, and it's a micro amusement park. And it's funner than hell, and you all have to go there and spend a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I know we have a few minutes left, so I'd like to breeze through some future thinking real quick. On here, this sort of montage, exactly. I love what 2-Bit Circus is doing. Everything from you can play Beat Saber in VR to see what's new and next. Like, I love that they have the beta night and have the creators come in and how they can kind of test and learn their own products. I love that.
And my youngest son has 2 of the highest earning games. He actually builds coin-op games. So I've got 4 kids, 4 sons into the game business right now, soon to be 5. They're all my sons, but my 3 daughters, they don't want to be in the game business. And so it's not genetic. Yeah, I've got 8 kids. That's excessive.
You got a whole team. You can play whatever game, Nolan.
Right. Well, one of the things I want to do before we run out of time is talk about things that you have to look at. And one is geofencing and AR. Pokemon Go was a great idea with a crappy game. And so, you know, that doesn't mean that geopositioning isn't going to be a big part of our life in the future. I think it's an important trend. The other one that I like a lot is this whole idea of creating these massively multiplayer, time sequential gameplay. You know, remember Trivia HQ? You played that? Where 2 times a day you have to go and play trivia. Well, trivia is actually, you know, do you know only 12% of the population will play a trivia game? You know? So there's a 88% part of the world that's not being done. So that's an area for fun exploring. The other thing that I really like is there's going to be some combination between 3D printing and games more than just printing out crappy little game pieces. But
There's actually, at the moment, there's a great kids learning product called Sensors Alive by Thames and Cosmos. And what they've done is something similar to, you don't have the printer at home.
right.
So you create it, and then it's shipped off, 3D printed, and sent to you. And then there's actually an augmented reality experience. So and part of that, to create your 3D item, there's these sensors, and you go and collect light or temperatures, and then it reads it in the app, makes your creature, your fun creature, ship it off, get your 3D creature, and then bring you back to the gameplay experience. But that's the only one where I've seen it like that. You know, obviously 3D printers they're making them more accessible. They're still like those consumer-friendly ones, but we all don't have them in our homes yet.
Well, Zay and I have so many games that are be coming at you in the next little while, and all the way from 2-year-olds to 80-year-olds. And I think that, you know, I can guarantee you they'll be fun, and Zay will guarantee that they'll be pretty.
A couple of things here. I know we've had sort of flashing on the screen, but kind of building on your point, Nolan, in terms of like the near future of gamings. The good news is there's actually numbers behind it. So we are weird, but we're weird in a good way that'll actually get funded.
Crazy like a fox, you know?
Yeah. So a couple of them sort of swiftly here are digital games being a $160 billion industry. So we're doing something right.
Board games by themselves are $11 billion and growing at 20% annually.
And then in terms of connected play, so exactly what you guys have done with State Noir, having that physical, digital experience. These are amazing numbers. It's going to be $18 billion industry by 2023. So there's 200% growth from last year. So we need to be doing more of these games.
Need you guys also to be doing them, yeah. If you guys are interested, please come and see me after, too.
The world is under-entertained.
And then kind of rounding it out, obviously, this is a great number for you guys, over 1,000% increase by 2023 for voice assistance in the home. So very excited about that. What's ahead? Well, we're out of time right now, but we hope that you guys will kind of keep track in terms of what everybody's doing here. Go check out State Noir. Oh, one of the most important parts. Do you guys want to tell them what today is?
Launch day.
Today is the launch date of the game.
Right. So on Amazon, exclusively on Amazon, but everybody here, they can actually go buy State Noir right now, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we expect you to do so. You know, it was one of those things, early days in Atari, people say, I spent a lot of money on Pong. And I said, well, thank you very much. Keep it coming.
Thank
Nice
you all
being here,
again. Have
guys.
a fantastic Comic-Con.
Thank you.